Imagine this. You are 20 years old and you just earned your first real money, $5,000. What you do with it right now will literally change the rest of your life. Not metaphorically, mathematically. This is real, my friend. This is not motivation. It's probability. And this is what time does to small amounts of money.
At 20, $5,000 feels like so much money.
And it is, because after all, it's your first victory, your first real paycheck, your first proof that you can earn.
I know that feeling, my friend. But the question that will define the next 45 years of your life is very simple. What do you do with it? Option 1, you spend it. A new car payment, a trip, an experience, upgrading your life in the way that feels good right now. And here's the thing, that's not wrong.
It's supposed. You're 20, and you should enjoy being 20. But there's a cost that you won't see for 20 years. Option 2, you invest it. You open a brokerage account. You buy index funds. You set it to reinvest dividends. And you never touch it again for 45 years. And you go live your life. That's the choice. Not a moral choice, a mathematical one. Let's see what happens.
At 30, you're building your career. You've had raises, you've had promotions. You're making more money than you did at 20. Life is good, probably better than it was. Your apartment is nicer, your life is more stable. You're doing well, but here's what you're not seeing. If you invested that $5,000, it's now worth approximately $17,000. You didn't do anything. You earned nothing. You didn't work a single hour for it. Time and compound interest made that happen. And that money is continuing to compound, quietly, in the background, while you sleep. Meanwhile, the person who spent it on that experience at 20, they have zero.
And they're spending their 30s paycheck on their 30s life. There's nothing wrong with that. But the math is starting to separate, and they can't see it yet.
At 40, things are getting serious. You have real responsibilities, real money, real stakes. You're making 3 times what you made at 20. You're successful by most measures. But something is happening that you might not have expected. That $5,000 from 20 years ago is now worth $95,000. You made $95,000 in your sleep just by leaving it alone. And the growth is accelerating.
Every year, that money grows more than it grew the year before. Compound interest isn't linear, it's exponential. And at 40, you're starting to feel the effects. Meanwhile, the person who spent it, they're 40 now too, and they've earned a lot of money in those 20 years, made decent choices, built a good life, but they're still trading hours for dollars.
Every single day. The difference between you isn't talent, isn't luck, isn't connections. It's that $5,000 at 20 and the patience to leave it alone.
At 50, the mathematics stop being invisible. That $5,000 from 30 years ago is now worth $440,000. In a single moment, you've entered a completely different financial reality. You didn't work harder. You didn't earn it. Time did, and compound interest did the rest. At 50, you have options that the other person is just starting to understand they'll never have. You could retire in 5 years, or work until 65 and be genuinely wealthy, or retire now and live a modest but completely stable life. The choice is actually yours. That is what matters.
Meanwhile, at 50, the person who spent it at 20, they're still working, still trading, still hoping that the next decade produces the miracle that would solve everything. It won't. Because at this point, compounding doesn't save you anymore. You would need to earn and save $1.5 million in the next 15 years just to catch up to the person who just invested $5,000 at 20 and never touched it. The gap is now unguardable.
At 60, the difference isn't a gap anymore. It's two completely different lives. That $5,000 from 40 years ago is now worth $930,000. You're one early exit, one good year, one lucky break away from actually being wealthy. And more importantly, you don't have to work anymore. Not because you retired, because your money now generates enough to cover your life. You could stop today and be completely fine. Meanwhile, the person who spent it at 20, they're 60 and they still have to work. Not because they're irresponsible, but because they're 15 years behind someone who had the same opportunity that they did. They made the same money, they worked the same hours, but time was not on their side because time was never given a chance.
At 65, you retire. Not because you have to, because you want to. Your $5,000 investment is now worth $1.4 million. You earned $1.4 million in 45 years while never working a single hour for that specific money. You built a life, raised a family, took care of people you love. And in the background, without you having to think about it, $5,000 became financial security for the rest of your life. For the person who spent it at 20, they're 65, and they're probably just starting retirement planning at the age when they should be finishing it. They have maybe 5 or 6 years of real earning potential left, and they need to make up a lot of ground.
So let's be clear about what happened. Same person, same intelligence, same opportunity, same education. One of them invested $5,000 at 20. The other spent it. 45 years later, one of them is a millionaire. The other is working toward it. Same person, different choices. This isn't theory. This is compound interest.
Now, here's the part that most people won't tell you. You probably don't have $5,000 at 20. Maybe you have $1,000. Maybe you have $200. Maybe you have nothing. And here's what matters. The math works at every level. $1,000 invested at 20 becomes $280,000 by 65. $200 becomes $56,000. But zero stays zero. The size of the starting point doesn't matter. The time horizon does. That 5,000 at 20 could have been 500. The principle is identical. The real question isn't whether you can invest $5,000. The real question is, are you willing to give up something today for something exponentially bigger tomorrow? Are you willing to not take the trip at 20 so that you can take the entire retirement at 65? Are you willing to drive the used car for 5 years so that you never have to work after 55? The math says yes. The math says the trade is worth it. But the choice is yours.
If you're 20 right now and you're watching this is the most important financial decision of your entire life. Not the highest paying job, not the best investment, not the smartest move. This one. Right now. Putting something away that you never touch again. If you're older than 20 and you're watching this, here's the hard truth. You can't go back in time, but you can start right now. And 20 years from now, you'll be very glad you did. The machine of compound interest doesn't care when you started. It only cares that you do.
Bend like a willow, bend like a willow, God